Alright, hey everyone, Squirrely here. Wanted to give you an update and sort of a mid-game guide is how I would call this on my Warpath character, what I've personally done, and just kind of things I've learned by playing a new patch. There's a lot of new stuff in this patch that I think if you get a leg up on it, it could really smooth your progression. So I'm gonna go over kind of everything. We're gonna start with my character. So right now I'm at level 82, and I've got Clotho's Needle. So this is our endgame weapon. It was super easy to get. I'll explain this more later on, but I got this super early. I think I got this, I don't know, at level 50 or something, something like that. And then I've got Titan's Heart. We'll also explain a little bit on how to best get this, because this is a really important piece of gear. This thing, with it on, without it, I have 2173 HP, and with it, I have 2800. Not only that, but I have 15% less damage taken while wielding a two-handed, which of course we're doing, and then just increase melee damage. Why not? It doesn't hurt. The do not regenerate health doesn't mean anything to us because we're leeching constantly, so it's the fake downside. So this is really, really important to get if you can get it. Hopefully you just drop it. It's not that rare. It's reasonably rare, but it's not super rare. But there's a nice way to get this, more likely if you're COF, and I'll explain that later. Belt and rings. This ring is actually kind of nice. Quicksilver coil gives you haste whenever you hit someone. Plus, you get melee attack speed, which is nice. But the haste is really why you're using this, because it just makes you move faster. It's not that good of a ring, realistically. Like, it doesn't give you anything else useful. 10% melee speed is pretty nothing. Not terrible, but you know what I mean? It's really just for the haste. Optional, completely optional. Something I was just using to make things go faster. Probably should have replaced it by now. I do have a Siphon of Anguish, but I don't want to use it until I get the belt, I'm thinking. I don't know. I might still use it. In fact, maybe I should equip that now. I don't know. Either way, Siphon of Anguish you can get from Shade of Aerobus, but usually you don't do Shades of Aerobus until you're at endgame Monoliths, like Empowered Monoliths. I think you can do it earlier, but they're pretty hard to find, and usually you're getting enough stability. This is just a general guide or rule for Last Epoch progression. You want to be doing only the bosses of each timeline. So you just do enough of a timeline to get enough stability to do the boss. You do the boss, and you go to the next one. Do the boss, go to the next one. Do the boss, go to the next one. And you want to do that because you want to do these three. Because doing these three and killing the bosses in these three will unlock Empowered Monoliths, and that means you can start doing the level 100 ones, where that's like the real end game. That's where you can start pushing Corruption, you can start doing Harbingers, get way better loot, all that stuff. So you want to try to get there as soon as you can. So I wouldn't even bother Shade of Robust, and this stuff doesn't, like this ring doesn't actually do that much until you get the belt as well. But yeah, you're looking for, looking at my gear right now, it's nothing crazy. Right, like this thing sucks for the most part. It's just used for the res. A bit of damage while channeling, but that's like nothing. The belt or the boots, kind of nice, but you don't have to have anything special, right? You're just looking for movement speed. Strength is a nice little addition. Health is really important, and this is the biggest thing I want to impart here, actually, with my gearing, because the endgame build, when you look at Last Epoch or Max Roll, I mean, they're suggesting mana, right? A lot of their, at least in the endgame section, a lot of the stuff that they show has tier 6, tier 7 mana, as if that's like the most important stat. And it is if you spec into Warrior's Fury so that you can sustain it. But sustaining this is really difficult. You need at least a tier 5 reduced channeling. Affix is what they say. I don't even know. I tried doing it. It didn't work for me. I don't even have any reduced channeling. So maybe with a tier 5 you can do it, you could try. But it just drains your mana like crazy. And eventually you're going to be at 0, and then you're going to get back up with the Void Essences, but then you're going to be at 0 again. And the Void Essences don't spawn fast enough for you to infinitely spin with Warrior's Fury. It just doesn't. You're never going to be able to infinitely spin. You might be able to sustain it long enough so that it doesn't matter. Once you have enough mana pool, I think maybe like 600 mana, enough maybe regen, and enough channel reduction on the helmet. But I'm not there yet. I can't really talk on it. But don't worry about max mana or any mana stats. on your gear. Just focus on health, focus on res, and focus on some damage stats. You know, things like melee attack speed, crit chance. Once you have Clothos specifically, do crit chance, which, like I said, you can get this pretty easily. You know, amulets, bone amulets, super strong, right? You get tons of phys res, tons of necrotic res just as an implicit. And again, looking for health. You try to get as much health as you can on all your pieces of gear, and that will really help you survive. Because you have enough damage for the most part, especially again once you get Clothos, you're doing crazy damage. It's, you know, the game becomes pretty easy at that point, so. And then in terms of skills, let's look at skills. So this hasn't really changed that much. I mean, you'll see, oh, I've spec'd into Juggernaut stance, and that's because of Clothos. So obviously you don't spec into this unless you have Clothos. And even then, you don't actually have to spec into it. It's just a nice defensive layer, because block in itself isn't that good, but parry gives you, like, if you parry something, you take 0 damage from that hit. And you have all your block chances converted to parry chance with this item. So, you know, the more block chance you get, the better. You can get 6% from your tree. You get 3% from 1 point into this. And then you actually get another 3% from 3 points into this. So actually what I did is I unspec'd a few points from here and put them into this. You could do 3 points out of this if you have enough elemental res already, but this just helps with gearing to have this higher than this. Otherwise, the tree hasn't changed much. You'll notice this, I actually unspec'd out of Abyssal Tempest. So let me actually explain this a bit more first. So until you get Voidwell, you don't want to be using Devouring Orb because it just takes too much mana. You also want to obviously be spec'ing to Unchained plus Reckless Spin so that you can sustain Warpath infinitely. But once you get Voidwell, you can start doing the auto-casting stuff. So you can do Abyssal Echoes, you can do Devouring Orb, you can unspec out of Reckless Spin and Unchains, and you know, put them into more useful places like Whirling Steel, which I should have 5 out of 5 on this, but there was some shenanigans that happened. But yeah, Abyssal Tempest, I found, wasn't doing enough. You know, every 5 seconds it cast Abyssal Echoes, but I found that Abyssal Echoes, all it was really doing for me was giving me like 20% attack speed, not terrible. And then 20% increased damage to enemies that are blinded, which is usually going to be the case because of this one. You know, it blinds enemies when it hits them. You know, so that's pretty much what it does. You know, and some Time Rot chance on hit, which isn't that bad either. It's good to apply more Time Rot. But that's everything it does. You know, and for that, you have to be using 35 mana every, I think it's actually every 2.3 seconds, right? No, every 5 seconds. Every 5 seconds it casts. So every 5 seconds, it's you taking 30 mana from you, and doesn't sound that bad, right? And it's not that bad if you have a lot of mana, maybe. But when you have them be 150, 160 mana like I do, you'd be whirlwinding, and you can see, or warpathing, and you can see my mana is getting chunked pretty heavily already. You know, and as soon as I hit 0, it's going to consume these stacks. See that there's a buff right here. It'll consume that, and then it'll go back up. But you'll see I'm just barely sustaining these in order to get it back up. And you see how I just paused there? And then it resumed? So that gets really bad when you're running Abyssal Echoes. That happens way more often. Because you're going to 0 mana more often. And you're not sustaining enough of those things. And for whatever reason as well, this can act a little strangely. Sometimes it's really smooth, sometimes it's not. I don't know, I think that's just something they have to maybe iron out. I think it's a bug, I can't tell. I don't know for sure, but... You know, it doesn't feel good when you stutter like that. And sometimes it gets even worse where, like, you're deep in the negatives and you literally have to wait so that you get mana again before it then gets consumed. Or you get one of those so that it gets consumed. So, I wasn't a fan of that. It felt a little clunky, and I just felt like it wasn't doing enough for me. And I had enough damage already. So, I unspec'd out of Abyssal Echoes, and I instead chose to use Void Cleave. So Void Cleave is kind of a nice skill. It's really a movement skill using Gravity's Edge. So it lets you move decently far, not as far as Volatile Reversal when it's spec'ing to a movement skill, but Volatile Reversal does nothing else except for move you. Everything else is useless about it, so I wasn't a fan. Because this doesn't work, because I guess Warpath isn't a direct melee attack, so it doesn't echo. And then this also doesn't work if you have this spec, because now you can no longer jump backwards in time, so you no longer get the frenzy buff. So you it's literally just for movement speed and maybe a bit of time rot. So I don't think it's worth it. It's okay for campaign. I use it in campaign to as like a movement skill, but beyond that, Void Cleave is way better. Because not only is it a nice movement skill, and it does a lot of damage, right? It actually uses your weapon and it does melee damage. It gives you critical vulnerability stacks on the enemy, which gives you an extra 6% crit chance, like base crit, on an enemy that has that on them. And it's just plus 3 stacks, right? As long as you hit them once. So that's really good. You want to use that on bosses and get that applied on them. I have this. I'm actually thinking of unspecking it. It gives you another charge, but it makes it cost more mana. And then I get into that problem of being no mana faster than I'd like to when using the skill. But beyond that, you also want to get Void Cleave or Fraying Strikes because it gives you Void Resistant Shred, which is really strong. And then Armor Sunderer shreds armor and increases the armor shred effect too of that shred. And it gives you more duration on it. So that's also really good. So it gives you a lot of good stuff. It kills enemies when you use it, and moves you pretty far. And yeah, it feels pretty good. So I'm a fan of this one. I use that instead of the Abyssal Echoes, but I think that's preference. So you could try it. Once you get into the late game, unspecking stuff, and specking another skill in, it does not take long to level it back. You get so much XP for these skills in the later games, so you can kind of experiment that way. And nothing else has changed here. This is the exact same as in my other tree. Same with Anomaly. This hasn't really... Oh, no, this has changed. Let me explain Anomaly and my change. So my initial planner, I actually didn't include board time because I thought it's not really worth it. It's so many points to get just to make it instant. But it's a nice quality of life, and we have so much crit damage or crit chance already that this felt a little unnecessary to have to spec into. So I decided to go with board time. That's also maybe user preference, however you feel you need to do. I would still get this right side first before going to board time, because I really do think it's more of a luxury. It just makes things easy, because I'd never use this while mapping, unless I'm like versing a difficult nemesis boss or nemesis enemy or a boss, right? Then yeah, I'll use Anomaly, but otherwise it costs a fair bit of mana. Again, it gets you into that state where you're out of mana, you're consuming Void Essences, and then you might run out of Void Essences while whirlwinding. So that's not a good feeling. But that's kind of the changes in the skills. Oh yeah, and the reason why I only have 1 point in Cyclone of War while having 4 points into here is with Clotho's Needle and, a fair bit of crit chance on my gloves. And then I actually had more crit. I have some crit chance here. And then I actually had more crit chance on my gloves before, and I changed these recently. But you can see melee crit chance is at 66%. And then with an extra 6% crit, like base crit, that brings it up close to 100. Maybe a little bit less than 100, but it's actually pretty close to 100% crit. So if you hit your enemy with Void Cleave, you're going to have pretty much 100% crit chance. Just straight up. So really, I should probably have 1 more point into this to get 100% crit chance, but and take a couple points out of this. But I don't know. I'm not really struggling with damage. I'm okay with just leaving it like this for now. I kind of like the block chance, but I should. Like, I think you should, for example. I don't think you should. I mean, it's up to you. It's really preference. Like, being more defensive, I think, is in general in this game as a whole is good, because if you die in an echo, you lose the rewards, right? So dying is way more of an issue than killing something fast. If you kill something an extra 5 seconds faster, does it really matter if you instead die more often too? Not really. So, and then also to go over idols, I didn't really go over that. So idols, you're looking for health and mana. Mana doesn't matter that much. So you want flat health, at least not yet. You want flat health is good. The void penetration is kind of nice. Obviously resistances you want to get. The big things, like, so the small idols, you just kind of get your resistances capped, get some health on it, blah, blah, blah. But the big ones that you want to get are solar idols, which give you chance to get increased melee void damage. So this one has a perfect roll, which is good. The prefix is useless, but I haven't found a better one yet. So these are pretty rare. But ideally for the prefix, you get echo damage. You get this prefix essentially. You can roll that on this one too. And then these Raya idols they actually don't roll any good suffix from what I remember. They only roll good prefixes, which is the melee echoing damage. So ideally you get a bunch of these. You get 2 of these. You put that here and here. And then you fill the rest with like medium and smalls. But you can also do my setup where you get to fit 2 of these ones. But realistically, you know, 1 of these is better if you get the good prefix than 2 of these. So, but again, it's hard to find those. But if you do find them, try to put them in. And then enchant them, right? Because when you're doing, and that's the new mechanic, or one of the new mechanics, when you're doing the cemetery, so this is a cemetery of the erased, when you do one of these, you at the end you get to enchant your idol, and you can get some good ones. The best ones I've found, I'd say, would be this one. Armor mitigation applies to damage over time is really strong. Damage over time is a dangerous thing to deal with, so getting these is really good. Beyond that, you can get a bit of like physical resistance on them, but and there might be some other ones you can get that are good. I haven't looked at all of them, but definitely this is a really, I think, probably the best one or close to it. And you can re-roll the enchantments, but it's kind of expensive. And do you really want to be spending the currency on a suboptimal idol? Probably not, right? Because you can use the currency to buy Woven Echoes. But yeah, that's up to you. You want to try to re-roll and get better ones. I did a few of that. But that's kind of the setup in terms of affixes as well as skills. Let me talk about Clothos and how to get Clothos. So Clothos, again, it's our endgame weapon. It's really strong. I mean, look at the stats that this thing can have. You know, this one, so what it does is it spawns with Weaver potential. So it's like it's a Weaver item. And Weaver items, how they work, if you don't know, is when you kill enemies, you unlock a new affix. And it's random what you get. It could be anything. It could be completely useless, or like, for example, physical penetration doesn't do anything for me. That could have been void penetration, by the way, which would have been insane. But I got unlucky, I guess. But overall, it's a pretty lucky one. You know, but then you can get shred on hit, which is really, really good, right? I got a tier 5 shred on hit. You can also get melee critical chance, really good. You know, melee physical damage, not amazing, but it actually is damage, so it's not the worst thing. But ideally, you get void, right? Yeah, so and I have a list of suffixes. I'll actually put that in the description, what I would recommend suffixes to get. I can put that in there. But yeah, Clotho's Needle, how you get this is a couple ways. One, the almost guaranteed way, I call it guaranteed, it's not technically guaranteed, but it's pretty close, is running these Lostwood Follies, Woven Echoes. Because this map contains, and maybe I'll run one just to show you guys in a bit, but this contains Clotho in it, and Clotho, he drops this item, and he has a 30% chance to drop it. I think that scales with corruption or something, but on a baseline, it's 30%, which is pretty dang good, right? That's pretty common. And he always spawns in the same place. I'll show you guys that too. But yeah, getting Clotho's Needle, and so running these, and you want to not just run one of them and get one of them, you want to get a bunch, because again, you can get different affixes for each one. For example, I guess I'd have to go into an echo, but I have another one that, my first one that I got, had not as good stats. Like, it didn't have as much damaging stats, so I decided not to use that one, and switch to this one instead. And you can also get, you know, like, there's some pretty varying rolls on this item too. You can see like the melee critical strike chance baseline or implicit goes between 5 to 8%, which is pretty big actually. 3% increased crit chance is a big deal. So, you know, getting a perfect roll there can be good. Getting 11 strength versus 4 strength can be a big thing. Not that big, but you know, it's nice. The critical strike multiplier, it goes from between 15 to 25. That's only 10%, but still. But the main things are the affixes, right? Because you can get anything. You can get a completely useless one, or a really good one. And then to also show you how you can quickly, without having to kill enemies, I'll maybe show you that if I do get a one from Clotho, if I run them. But you can put the Clotho's Needle when it has Weaver whatevers in left on it, and you can use a Rune of Weaving, which are pretty common. I have 12 of them here. I've used a few already. I think you get them from cemeteries and stuff. And then you use this, and then it consumes some of the Weaver Will on the item. So it can consume a fair bit even. And it usually will give you at least 2 affixes, so you can kind of see what they are. And if they're completely trash, you just drop the item. You know, you don't use it. If they're good, then you can continue to unweave it, or if you want to save them, you could equip it and use the item, but and kill things with it. That's like a quick way to unveil them, and just because you're gonna be doing a lot of them, right? Until you get a perfect one, which is tough. And again, I'll post a list of prefixes and suffixes. But just to give you a quick overview, melee crit chance is really, really good. Void flat damage is really, really good. Void penetration is really good. Chance to shred armor is like the best suffix, actually, so that's really good. And there's some others that are pretty good, too. And the way to get these woven echoes, so lostwood folly is a common one. It really drops pretty commonly. And you get them from, obviously, the cemeteries is one way. But you can also get them from, whenever you do an echo, there's a chance for a tomb to spawn in the echo. And it will show you in the minimap, like it'll highlight the tomb, so you can't miss it. You can not do it, but you can not miss it, really. And if you go in there, you can get these drops. So they're less common in there compared to the actual cemeteries on the echo web or whatever. But they're still reasonably, like, it's worth doing if you're trying to get one of them. Keep in mind, though, they are tough. So especially if you're going in really early, like a level 30 or something, but even at level 50, they are tough. You have to have good resistances. You have to have decent life pool, like at least 1,000 HP is what I'd recommend, right? Decent damage, like they're pretty tanky. There's a lot of rares, and the boss themselves can be pretty tough too, because you have to beat a boss at the end. And they can be, some of them are hard, some of them are easy. You can actually fight Clotho. He's one of the bosses that can spawn in the cemeteries and tombs, and he can drop his unique. So that's actually pretty nice. You can actually just get one from doing a tomb or a cemetery. One of these. So that's cool too. But this is definitely the best way to get them. Best way to farm them. And you get them again from cemeteries and tombs. Just killing monsters. It'll randomly drop. And it's a pretty common one. You might be able to buy it as well from the merchant. I don't know. I guess I could take a quick look. Let's see. Yeah, you can buy them. So yeah, you can just try to buy them from the merchant, right? They're a little expensive at 1,000 memory amber. I only have 8,000, right? But that might be worth doing. Definitely it's worth buying the ones when, if you haven't found it yet, you can get the points, right? But I've already earned all of them, so I'm not going to buy any. Maybe I could buy these, but I'm good. So, yeah. Another tip, and this is, I was going to mention, right, how to get Titan's Heart. And also there's a really good pair of boots. I think it's called Suluron Step. That gives you a ton of crit multi. And that you can get them from using Rune of Ascendancy. Rune of Ascendance, it's these things. I don't have too many of them. They're pretty rare, relatively rare. But, I mean, they're not that rare. So don't worry about using them. But what you can do is you can convert a item into a unique, as long as it's not already unique. So something like this, I can convert into a unique, right? But it only works for non-boss specific uniques. So it would have to be like Titan's Heart. It has to be able to be dropped from anywhere. So Titan's Heart is a good example of that. Titan's Heart can be dropped anywhere. The Suluron Steps are also a good example of that. So those are two uniques that are best in slot for us. And those are the only two uniques that can actually be dropped anywhere. So those are the only two slots that we would want to use Runes of Ascendancy on. And we definitely want to use them because this is our endgame item, right? And if you get LP1 on this, or LP2, but even just LP1 is massive, because then that means you can get Warpath +4, right? You can get a tier 7 Warp, and you guarantee getting a tier 7 Warpath +4 on a LP1 unique, because now they allow you to choose which mod you want to put in the LP slot. So that's really powerful, right? But even just getting a non-LP version of Titan Heart is really, really powerful, because this is just such a busted item for this build. And one really important technique, especially if you're specifically if you're COF, so Circle of Fortune, which is the faction that you can choose, right, between Circle of Fortune and Merchant's Guild. You can choose one of the two. I'm COF because I prefer just a self-found, just playing the game. You just get more loot. But something about this, and this is something you get really early on at rank 2, which is like you get that instantly, basically, is you get 45% chance for Runes of Ascendance to be preserved when used on an item that requires at least Circle of Fortune rank 1. So basically, if it has any sort of Circle of Fortune requirements on the item, if you use your Rune of Ascendancy on it, pretty much 50% chance for it to not be consumed, which is pretty massive, right? Like, if you get lucky, you can make a Rune of Ascendancy last a very long time, and you can do a bunch of these. So you don't want to use it on just one random rare. You actually want to make sure that, like, I have a stash tab of items that can be converted, and let's just do one right now. So I can use my Rune of Ascendance on it, And because it has rank 3, well, any rank of COF, I have a 50% chance of it not being consumed. And you can see here, it preserves it, right? Now, it turned it into a useless item. I can just drop it, whatever. But I could have gotten my endgame unique from it. And it can have LP, by the way, if you're lucky, right? You can get LP from using Rune of Ascendances. So that's why it is worth doing. Because if you get lucky, I lost mine, you can not lose it. And actually, I don't think I did lose it. And you can get the item you need. And that's how I got my Titan's Heart, actually. I didn't drop it. I used the Rune of Ascendance. Took me like 4 or 5 of them. And yeah. And now they're all gone. Rip. And you can hopefully get the one you need. So definitely worth doing. I have actually a filter, and I can put that in the description. It's basically my same filter, except I have a recoloring of the Circle of Fortune items that I want, which is body armor and boots. And it just basically, if it has the property of Circle of Fortune of any sort of level, it'll be highlighted in kind of like the lightest blue color. Very useful. I'll put the filter into the description with that addition on it. But yeah, definitely recommend using a Rune of Ascendancies, especially for the chest piece, because Titan's Heart is insanely good. So that's the first one you want to do. Boots are a luxury. The chest piece is really useful for when you go into Empowered Echoes. You're getting that big chunk of HP and damage reduction. Let's go over the Woven Tree. So, how I started my tree, because I'm Circle of Fortune, experience is extremely important. Not just because I'm Circle of Fortune. I mean, experience is always really important, right? It's probably the best reward you can get compared to something like a rune or a glyph, or, you know what I mean? Like, runes are okay, but glyphs, you get so many of them. Who cares? Arena keys are completely useless. Obviously, you always want to block that. And gold is also worthless for us. So, you know, but experience, super important, because not only is levels equal power, but also once you hit level 90, that's guaranteeing you to get the most experience you can get from Empowered Echoes, or Empowered Timelines, which is the rank, level 100 timelines. That's really important. And it gives you faction levels. So as you get XP, you get faction levels. So that also increases your faction rank, which is really a very powerful thing in this game. So you definitely want to... I just rushed. I went here. I got 1 point there, 1 point there, 1 point here. I just put some random piece of jewelry in here. Typically, you want to put something that is useful to you, right? That has some good affixes on it, because what it does is it'll have a chance to, whenever you kill an enemy, drop something similar to this. That's pretty nice. And then, yeah, 1 point to here, and then block these two, 1 point to here, block these two, and leave this up. Once you've done that, you can kind of do whatever. I got a point into this. I don't know if it's actually useful. I don't like beacons, though, so that's kind of nice. You get to block beacons. And then apparently the spiders might be good. I don't know. It's hard to say. Don't really notice it. And then 1 point in the Gift of Allegiance for the favor caches. You get a chance for favor caches, which gives you a bunch of favor to your faction, which is nice. You can get a point into this if you have a good piece of gear that you want to make sure drops, but I don't really have any gear that I really, really want to drop right now. So, like, I don't have, like, a really good piece that, like, I need more of, I guess you could say. But, and then I went to the left. I wanted to get Woven Riches so that I can put Lostwood Folly into it, because what that does is it imprints the Woven Echo you choose so that it has a chance to spawn on your Echo Web when a new Echo is generated. So that means you can literally just get this as a natural Echo in your Echo Web, and you can just run this as if it's, like an arena or whatever the heck, right? And then you just get more Clothos without having to even farm the actual Woven Echoes themselves. So really good. You can actually get another one here too. So you can get double the chance, I would assume, to get Lostwood Follies on your Woven Echo Web. And then eventually, once you get a perfect one, you can unspec that, right? But, or keep it spec'd and play your favorite one. They're pretty fun, the Woven Echoes. I've found some really fun ones. And I haven't done all of them yet. There's tons. But, yeah, I think those are good nodes. I decided to go down here for Fury and Fortune because it sounds good, right? Rare enemies, I just got this, so I haven't really tested it too much. Yeah, rare enemies are enraged, which means that they have increased attack speed and movement speed. But I didn't really notice it. I haven't died in like a long time since getting like Titan's Heart and some other health gear. Like I'm so tanky. It's pretty insane. So, you know, I felt like I was strong enough, and I haven't noticed. I mean, I've only played a few echoes with it, but I haven't struggled at all. So yeah, I think it's worth it. It's up to you. Again, a lot of this stuff is going to be subjective. You could do the arena stuff maybe if you... Arenas have gotten better. That might be worth doing. I don't think... You get so many catacombs and tombs. I don't think you need to increase the chances of getting them. But I definitely think going to the right and ensuring you get as much experience as possible from echo rewards is, I think, always the play. If you're going to go COF. One more thing. Let me show you how to get Clotho's Needle. Alright, so one thing to note. Clotho always spawns to the top and right. So on the right side there, you want to just go through. I don't know why I went around that, but whatever. Want to go through, up to the right. You don't want to fight the other bosses at all because they could kill you, right? And if you die, or you kill Clotho, you lose your chance of getting his unique, so. You know, and Clotho's easy. There we go, we got it. It's also very common for him to drop a Rune of Weaving as well. But here we go, we got a Clotho's. The low roll for the most part, but yeah, really low roll with strength and all that. But let's see, maybe we get lucky with the Reavers. So put that in, use Weaver's Will. Not bad, we got crit chance. I mean, it's overall pretty shit though, right? So, and it's also just increased crit chance rather than base crit. Yeah, so I would just toss this, right? Now, if obviously that's your first one, you would use it, but yeah. There's an example, right? That's how you would farm Clotho. I think that covers everything. You know, if you guys have any more questions in the comments, please leave them, and I will try to answer, or maybe come up with another video that can answer them better. And I'm still working on getting it to the end game, right? So I'll probably have an update eventually on what I'm doing. And if you guys want to follow my journey, I am streaming on twitch.tv/playswithsquirrel. My link is in the description there to watch me and follow along. Ask me questions. I love questions. You know, I'm a fan of teaching people in that sense. So please join in. And yeah, thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. Like, follow, and yeah, let me know what you think.